Good evening, everyone. My name is David Maldow, and thank you for joining us this evening. We're happy to begin our RFS annual business meeting for 2018. I will be your host for the evening, as well as our governing council chairs. As I mentioned, my name is David Maldow. I'm an R2 and PGY3 resident at the University of Rochester Medical Center, and I am the incoming governing council chair. Our previous chair, who I'll be succeeding, is Andrew Niekamp, who is an R3 and PGY4 at the University of Texas, Houston, and the Anderson Cancer Center. I'd just like to thank Andy for leaving me in really good hands and doing such a tremendous job over the past year. We've accomplished a ton, both at the local, national, and regional level, and he's been a tremendous leader for us. I have some great shoes to fill, but I look forward to the challenge. So just to start, this overall annual business meeting, the goal for tonight will be to give an overview of our different committees, our accomplishments over the past year, and what we aim to accomplish this coming year, and how that aligns with the SIR mission. And so our mission for the RFS, as a quick review, we're the voice for the residents and fellows in pursuit of their training. We like to promote the clinical model of interventional radiology by stressing service to the patient. We'll continually expand our knowledge to become true disease experts, to fundamentally understand the pathophysiology and medicine behind the diseases that we treat. And we will ultimately serve our patients well as we deliver longitudinal patient care by accomplishing these things. We'll also work to influence the training model and recruit the best people who are motivated and like-minded to the specialty. And so our overall initiatives are very much tailored to meet this mission. And so I'd like to quickly give an overview of my initiatives for 2018, which the main overall goals include recruitment, training, and clinical knowledge practice development. These are all, of course, critical areas of IR training and development of the specialty. And to start with recruitment, we will aim to have continued growth and support the Medical Student Council, as well as their regional symposia. We'll outreach to undergraduate students. That's been something that we will aim to increase over the course of the year with undergraduate students. There's a restructuring of the application process to maximize active involvement, and work with the Women in IR Committee towards diversity initiatives and recruitment. From the training standpoint, there are multiple areas where we will be focusing on. Clinical focus on stroke care, DVT, and CLI wound care are all critical for us. The establishment of resident-run IR clinics at institutions is quite variable depending on the institution, and we're aiming to roll those out and have more steady contributions of resident clinics throughout the country. An additional area where we'd like to increase our clinical focus is in regards to the resident clinic would be the development of the SIR Connect IR Student Resident Clinic Forum to engage trainees to discuss conditions and their clinic encounters. That will be discussed further in the membership council section. And we'll continue to collaborate with the Society of Interventional Radiology and the SARC, which is our Student and Resident Committee, our oversight committee, to develop a universal curriculum, which will serve as a national model for the IR residency. This is something that has been being worked on through the past year, and we would like to continue to assist the SIR however we can to solidify the universal IR curriculum. And as I mentioned, with the increased clinical focus, stroke care in particular, we would like to work closely with SIR with their stroke advisory group to increase these initiatives on stroke awareness, medical management, and recruitment and training pathways for stroke care training. DVT and wound care as well. And in particular, wound care clinics, we are aiming to increase our involvement in wound care clinics and hope to roll out a wound care clinic competition to encourage the exposure and to encourage trainees to seek those clinic encounters. And we aim to facilitate that. Furthermore, we'd like to collaborate with the early career section towards expanding our practice building initiatives and personal finance resources for trainees. We're currently building a personal finance resource on the RFS website and would like to further develop that and work with the early career section to assist them with any initiatives of their own. So I encourage you to check out the RFS section webpage, where you can see many of these resources are available, including the overview of the RFS, the application process, and upcoming events such as webinars, etc. And that will be discussed further in our communications section. So the overall structure for the RFS, it starts with the Society of Interventional Radiology, of course, and our current president, Dr. Suresh Vedantam, and our president-elect, Dr. Victoria Marks, are our presidents overseeing the SIR. Then there's Dr. Parag Patel, who is our counselor for graduate medical education, who oversees us as well as the student and resident committee, who is chaired by Dr. Paul Roshan. Furthermore, one of our RFS advisors, longtime RFS advisors, is Dr. George Vatican Cherry, who is one of our founding fathers of the RFS and continues to play an integral role in our initiatives. So I'd like to personally thank everyone here, in particular Dr. Patel, Dr. Roshan, and Dr. Vatican Cherry, who I've worked closely with, who fully support our goals, and I'm very excited to work with all of them towards a successful 2018. And so here's the overview of the RFS section. It starts with 10 governing council committees, which you'll hear from tonight. We have monthly meetings to give updates on our individual committee progress and collaborative events that we can work together on. And so we'll hear from all of those. And then within the membership council, which is one of these 10 committees, there are 7 service lines. And in the addition to a new service line, the Research Advisory Group. And furthermore, the Medical Student Council also works on their own and has a tremendous following that you will hear from briefly tonight, as well as at their own annual business meeting coming up. So the Governing Council term cycle, as far as our chair positions, generally revolve around the academic calendar. And there are 2 different terms, unofficial and an official term. The working term starts in the fall and goes through the winter. So essentially, we transition fall to fall so that we have time to prepare for the annual meeting. So our new chairs, such as myself and the ones you'll be hearing from this evening, have essentially started their chair roles as of January, but the formal positions, the terms, begin at each annual meeting. So the formal start for this will be at the annual meeting in March. So this is our Governing Council for 2018. I'm thrilled to be working with every single one of you. We're off to a great start already, and there are so many exciting initiatives underway that I look forward to having you all hear about as we speak tonight. And I'd also like to acknowledge our 2017 Governing Council, some of which will be staying on and others who will be moving on. And every single one has done a tremendous job. It was a real pleasure working with all of you, and really set us up for a great upcoming year. So a huge thank you to every single one of our Governing Council members from 2017. Some notable accomplishments over the course of 2017, thanks to our outgoing chairs. On the international level, our International Outreach Committee is in its relative infancy, only a few years old, but we've experienced tremendous growth that you'll hear about more later in the meeting, including collaboration with CIRSE and SIRA and significant outreach there, and we're excited to continue that this year. The Medical Student Council and interest continues to grow phenomenally, and it's very exciting to see the level of interest at the medical student level. We have 96 national interest groups currently and growing. We've had 24 regional symposia, and the council has expanded to include biodesign and innovation committees, as well as a vice chair position. Our clinical offerings continue to increase through our various committees. The Clinical Education Committee is currently in progress with the Society of Interventional Radiology's Introduction to Research online program. We've had 275 registrants from this, a significant number of which is medical students, which is phenomenal. And we currently completed 3 of our webinars out of 10. And we'll hear more about that later in the course, later in the webinar. We've also been developing the IR curriculum, as I had previously mentioned, and we'll continue to work with SIR to help in any way that we can. And the SIR Patient-Centered Video Project is an exciting project through the Membership Council, in which we aim to outreach with patients and optimize our ability to reach out to patients and provide them with information about IR and what we can do to help with their medical management. Social media has undergone significant expansion this year as well. Many thanks to the Communications Committee for that. And we will be working with SIR for this upcoming annual meeting on an ambassador program. So please look out for a nice social media program when we begin the annual meeting. Furthermore, we have continued growth of our Research Advisory Committee through the Membership Council, as well as our ICU service line. And last but certainly not least, our advocacy team continues to do tremendous work and have generated significant funds and awareness for advocacy, including their phone-a-thon and a great publication called HR 1167 in IR Quarterly, which you'll hear more about later in this meeting as well. And so with that, I will turn it over to our first committee of the Governing Council, the Medical Student Council, which will be presented by Aaron McBride.
Hey everyone, this is Aaron McBride. I'm the incoming vice chair, as David mentioned. I'm a 4th year out of 5 years at Cleveland Clinic, Lerner College of Medicine. I'll be working with Lauren Park from Brown, a 3rd year, and we'll be working with, as well in these last transition months, with Rebecca Lee, the outgoing chair of the MSc, who's done a wonderful job. Next slide. So we have a whole lot that we have to present. That's why David mentioned that we have an upcoming meeting. I'll tell you about more later. This slide presents an overview of our growth and our progress over this last year. So just going over that chart that you can see, we've increased the number of medical student members between February 2017 and February 2018 from 1,712 in 2017 to 2,182. That's a 27% growth. The number of IR interest groups has increased from 77 to 96, surpassing our stretch goal of 80. And that's a growth of 24%. The number of IRIG symposia has increased from 15 in 2017 to 24 in 2018. Actually 25, we just found out about one more tonight. So that's more than a 60% growth in 1 year, which is really incredible. Medical student attendance at the annual meeting last year is 463. As of February 1st this year, then we're at 326. We usually have quite a few medical students who register late on that as well. So we'll have a final number later on that. The number of MIT scholars at the annual meeting in 2017 was 50. This year, then we were able to select 85. So that's 70% growth, and we're grateful for everyone who made that possible. Next slide. Lastly, we're going to have our first annual Medical Student Council annual business meeting on Sunday, February 25th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Like we mentioned, we have 7 different committees now. It's really growing, and so we couldn't fit everything within several minutes on this. So I'd highly encourage you to register for that. There's a link at the bottom of the page you can distribute if other people are interested. We're going to discuss the accomplishments and goals of each committee, discuss the MSc application process, tips for a successful application, so very pertinent to medical students, but also for any attendings and any residents as well, because we have a whole lot of different projects that we'd be happy to collaborate on. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Aaron. Really, I'm continue to be amazed by the growth of the MSc and the medical student interest. Really speaks to the hard work you all are doing, and thank you for that. Please do sign up for the Medical Student Council business meeting. That will be extremely informative and exciting to hear about. Our next committee that will be presenting is clinical education with our incoming chair, Shantanu Warhadpande.
Hey guys, my name is Shantanu Warhadpande. I'm a PGY2 at University of Pittsburgh. So I'll try to keep this as brief as possible, but there's some stuff that I want to make sure you guys know about. So the focus of the Clin Ed committee is essentially to make sure that we're gearing up residents to be as clinical as possible. If you're anything like me, I can't fake confidence. So I want to be confident seeing patients, triaging them, rounding on them, seeing them in clinic, talking intelligently with other clinicians. So all of that is sort of what we focus on. Next slide, please. All right, so all this is coming from a place, obviously, where IR residents are going to be spending a bulk of their time in the R1 to R3 year in the reading room and not really doing any clinical stuff. So I would love to be able to mold IR trainees to become more clinical. Next slide. So this is kind of going over what we talked about, and that last sentence in the bolded, that's bolded, is sort of what we want to focus on this coming year, is to get clinical education exposure as early and as soon as we can in residency, meaning we don't wait until the R4 year to get exposure. Next slide. So how do we do that? So we have a couple things that we're doing, and everything, like I said, is focused on delivering resources and clinical education to med students, residents, and so on. We have a couple lecture series that are hosted as webinars, but also posted on the YouTube channel. And in addition, we have, as David mentioned, and we'll talk a little bit more about later, ITROP, which is essentially a way to train trainees to be able to conduct research in IR. It's something we're lacking right now, is high quality research. So hopefully we can find ways to make trainees a little bit better at that. We also have a couple other collaborative projects that I'm sure if you are involved in RFS, you'll hear about and you'll get exposed to. Next slide. So this slide, I think the only focus on this is that we have all these videos and webinars that we're creating. Is anyone watching them? This slide kind of proves, and hopefully is an argument for the fact that people are watching it. Our YouTube subscribers have almost tripled in the last 2 years and have doubled in the last year. So people are definitely at least getting exposed to it. And if you ever get a chance, please take a look at the IR education YouTube slide. I'm sure the communications group will talk a bit more about that, but we are getting the exposure, I think, that the webinars need. Next slide. So I'm going to just kind of briefly go over some of the other things that you might run into, which the Clin Ed committee is responsible for. So the case of the month is essentially exactly what it sounds like. It's an interesting case that's presented every month in a clinical format. Again, the focus is on clinical stuff, not procedures. Next slide. Similar to case of the month is Figure 1 and IR Quick Hits is, again, a way to provide sort of regular doses of clinical education throughout the week of the month. And I think overall you will, if you do pay attention to this, I think overall over the course of a year or two, you'll start getting a lot of high yield pearls about IR. So I would highly recommend those listening in to tune into these. Next slide. So ITROP, I want to go a little bit more into this because it's not only because it's a brand new initiative, but I think having listened in, it's an incredibly useful tool. If you're anything like me, I know nothing about research, and I definitely want to learn. So a good way to sort of learn is to turn to the people that are best at it. So what we did was we reached out to some of the top researchers. And when I say we, I mean David Maldow, by the way. He's been integral in putting this together. And we have a few other members in our Clin Ed committee that are responsible. But the essence is that we reached out to some of the big names, the big shots in IR, people who are known for research, and have them present different topics in IR and how to get better at research. So that's really the crux of it. And we have different modules set up. And some of the names that you might have heard of in the conferences, Dr. Valji, who has a book that he wrote, as well as Dr. White, and we have a few other big names coming up. So if you are interested in research, that's something that you want to take a look at. Next slide. So those are the sort of the projects that were already in place as of a couple months ago. We have a few new projects coming up, which I'm pretty passionate about, obviously. And the first one is the critical care curriculum, which this is something that I had to sort of explain because a lot of people don't get it. I'm a big believer that, in the R1 to R3 year, when you're not really getting exposed to clinical training that much, you want to be able to still get exposure to clinical education somehow. So the critical care curriculum is a way to sort of prepare you for clinical training in IR. What we'll be doing essentially is going through and finding different projects, different resources that are already out there. We're not making anything new, and essentially just collating them, vetting them out, picking the most high yield resources, and then presenting them to interested residents. We understand not every resident is going to love the idea of extra work, but for those residents who are, and you'll be surprised at how many people have shown interest in this, we want to be able to provide that for them. And then finally, we're doing a new session at SIR-LA called the Emergencies in IR training, Emergencies in IR. So what we want to be able to do is whenever a trainee is in the IR suite or in the post-procedure unit and something happens, we don't want to freeze. That's the goal, is to combat that. So we're going to have a session, kind of a hands-on workshop type session, where we have small groups, and attendings will lead these small groups and sort of present a scenario and then walk the trainees on how to manage them, handle them. It's all very practical. So hopefully we want to make this a yearly thing. So, if you are interested and want to get involved, let me know. And then finally, we want to revamp the webinar series and make it more clinical and continue pumping out these webinars that we're doing. Next slide. And this is sort of a review of everything. I'm not going to go into details, but guys, I think ClinEd is important. I think it's a huge committee, and we have a lot of good people working on it. If you are interested in any projects, let me know. Next slide.
Thank you so much, Shantanu. Really a lot of exciting initiatives underway. Looking forward to working with you on those. Our next presentation will be Erica Alexander, our chair of the Membership Council.
Hi everyone, I'm Erica. I'm an RT over at U10, and I'm happy to be leading the Membership Council for another year. Next slide, please. So the RFS Membership Council has historically consisted of 6 service lines. We have vascular disease, interventional oncology, pediatrics, pain, neuro, and GI/GU/reproductive health. I've noted the current chairs and the incoming chairs, and everyone's done a really remarkable job. So I just want to give credit to everyone whose name is on the screen, who's really helped make all of the projects this year come together. Next slide. Historically, there have been a couple of projects that we've been tasked with. One is the survival guides, the second is journal pipers, and the third is the webinar series. And I'll go into detail about this a little bit more on the next coming slides. There's also been an evolution in some of the projects that we've worked on, and a lot of progress and innovation that's been happening over the past couple of years. The resident chairs on the prior screen help lead the council, and they oversee a number of members. Many of the people on the call tonight are likely members of the Membership Council in some variety. And there's also faculty members at various institutions that advise as well. Next slide. So the webinars are things that the various service lines or events that the various service lines will hold every couple of months. Oftentimes we'll invite faculty attending to come talk about an area of expertise. Recently, there was a sepsis guidelines webinar that was held a couple of days ago that some of you might have been in attendance for. Some SIR webinars that discussed a day in the life of various subspecialty. And there's definitely a focus this year on looking at the more clinical components of patient care. So as David had said earlier in the talk, we're really pushing to see how you manage patients in both the pre-procedural and post-procedural settings so we can be better, well-rounded physicians. Next slide. Webinars are recorded and posted to the RFS YouTube channel. So these kind of live in perpetuity and people can watch them, and it's a really nice way for people to reference these going forward and to use them as learning tools. And they're incredibly interesting and also just a good way to kind of see the evolution of the fields of IR as well. Next slide. Another major endeavor of the membership council is the survival guides. So these are documents that are available on the SIR-RFS website, and they're meant to be documents that people and residents and medical students can use while going into cases that will discuss a particular procedure. And they're meant to be concise and provide the indications, the techniques, the post-procedural management, common complications of various cases. And these are incredibly useful for residents or medical students on their IR rotations to use and be informed and help give them a kind of quick overview of the various things that they're going to see. Next slide. Another big project that the membership council has been working on is journal primers. So each service line has looked at landmark articles in their particular topic area and provided summaries of those articles and kind of provided major points, criticisms, and also just summaries. And these are meant to be articles that all of us as future IRs should be aware of. And oftentimes we'll talk about major trials and studies that have come out that have helped dictate different guidelines in terms of patient management. Next slide. Some of the new projects that have kind of come to fruition this past year is the patient-centered video project. This is actually a piloted project that we're really looking to roll out this coming year, and we're collaborating with the Society of Interventional Radiology on this project. And what we're doing is interviewing patients and providing patient testimonials about their experiences with interventional radiologists and the procedures that they received. So, so far we have an article on aortic aneurysm repair and another on uterine fibrate embolization, where various members of SIR, RFS, and the Medical Student Council have interviewed these patients and asked them why they chose IRs and what their experience with the cases was like. And these are going to be posted to the SIR website to be made available for patients. So it's a project we're really excited about this year. Another one of the major projects we've rolled out this year is the Research Advisory Committee. This has been led by John Spirniotopoulos and Dania Day, who are both incredibly dedicated residents who have really kind of overseen the growth of this project. One of the things that they're going to be doing at the national meeting in LA on March 19th, I believe, is the grant writing workshop, which Dania Day is helping to lead. And there's a number of really prominent attendings who have very illustrious research careers who will be talking about how to pursue grants in your own career and as a medical student or resident. They're also looking to create a white paper on IR research training pathways. They're also looking to recognize the work that RFS members have produced, whether it's abstracts or publications, and to create a database of that. Another project that they're looking to collaborate with the service lines on are increasing the number of webinars related to journal clubs, and also to feature journal clubs, or papers rather, that our members have written. And also look to provide webinars for how to write papers as well. One of the goals, or actually several of the goals for 2018 and 2019 is, one, to roll out the SIR Connect Student Resident Clinic Forum. So this is something David had briefly mentioned. We're hoping to kind of have a more well-rounded approach and to feature the clinical components of IR and have people talk about encounters that have gone well or not gone so well, and also provide feedback and have a forum where attendings can help moderate this and people can talk in an open way and figure out how to best maximize our time in the clinic. The second big project is for each of our service lines to hold at least one clinical webinar per year, because we find that these are well received and good ways to kind of expand people's knowledge base. The third thing we're looking to do is work with the SIR Content Review Committee to really edit and post all of the survival guides and journal primers that a lot of our members have worked really hard on, because this has been a major endeavor of our project for a while. And last but not least, we're going to roll out the patient-centered video project and expand this into a service line-wide project and hopefully cover many of the major procedures that IRs do. So those are our goals. And next slide.
Thank you so much, Erica. We're thrilled to have Erica back for a second year, as she was the membership chair last year and did a phenomenal job. So looking forward to working with you again this year. Our next presentation will be communications. Our co-chairs are Justin Guan and Charles Hyman.
Hi, everyone. My name is Justin. I'm one of the incoming chairs for the communications committee this year. I'll be working with Charles Hyman. So I'm a PGY3 from the University of Iowa Hospitals and Clinics, and Charles is from Brown University. Next slide, please. So the communication committee, our main goal is to advertise information, webinars, journal clubs, presentations out to the RFS community, and also to publish news relating to IR in multiple different outlets. One of the arms that we use is through our IR Quarterly and Training column. These are articles that we publish every season that follows a certain theme. As you can see here, these are the themes that we've been following this past year. We've had our most recent publications on emerging technologies, and we are planning to have articles on health and safety in the spring season. Next slide, please. The other outlet that we use is through the RFS e-newsletter. So on a quarterly schedule, we try to publish 3 articles from residents and 3 articles written by medical students on various topics. Some of the most recent topics include IR and the pregnant and IR social media. And a lot of the social media work has been done by our co-chair, Charles Hyman. Next slide, please. Another arm that we use is the social media platforms that a lot of us are familiar with. Some of the platforms we use include the RFS Twitter account, the Facebook account, Instagram, and Figure One. So as you can see here, these outlets provide important up-to-date information to trainees and provide information about innovative educational opportunities. Figure One we use mainly to provide interesting cases. Facebook we use to post on a schedule about interesting cases from different universities, medical centers, and Instagram as well. And Twitter, we try to retweet posts by different training institutions and very prominent IR leaders in with Twitter accounts. Next slide, please. So as we can see here, for instance, for Twitter, we try to provide posts on a schedule. We try to, for instance, provide posts from institutions and prominent physicians on a daily basis. We have original IR tweets regarding education, news and culture, and patient care on a weekly to monthly basis. We will be publishing journal primers on a weekly to monthly basis as well. The webinars that we help to present to the RFS community, as well as news about conferences, we will do as they come along. So one important thing that we've been doing this past year, and was headed by Rajat Chand, is to have our social media ambassadors and the social media platform liaisons help with these tweets. Each liaison help with these postings on that follows these schedules. Next slide, please. As we can see here, this is an example of the cases that we post onto Facebook, again, about these various topics. Next slide, please. So other important duties that we have in the communications committee include the webinar coordination and presentations. For instance, this month we've had a couple webinars already, one on the VSAS applications geared towards medical students. We will have further webinars in the next upcoming 2 weeks regarding carotid artery stenting, as well as peripheral arterial disease, as well as a webinar on pediatric interventional radiology. The links to all of those webinars will be sent out via email to the RFS community. They will also be available on our RFS Gmail calendar, or I guess Google Calendar, so you can sign up for those. The other things we do, JVR access is an important way for us to give out information about new, most latest journal articles that JVR publishes. On a monthly basis, we have members contribute by writing a short summary about an important JVR article, whether it's a review article or about an interesting topic. As an RFS member, you are all welcome to help contribute, and it's a great way to have a publication under your belt. Next slide, please. So some of the current projects I like to cover, for the e-newsletter IR Quarterly, we're going to be continuing our seasonal schedule to publish those articles. For social media, one of our goals this year is to expand our LinkedIn presence. We have, as I had mentioned before, our ambassadors for SIR 2018. The social media ambassadors, their main role will be to help post really interesting events that happened for SIR 2018, kind of help advertise our presence at this meeting. So please, if you're involved in the social media platforms, keep an eye out for our posts and try to share them with your peers and friends. And we're going to be trying to expand our presence even more through our current platforms. One thing that we're doing with podcasts this year is we're collaborating with MSC to develop the Sound of IR project. This first season is currently under production. Currently, they're being led by Ben Rausch and Santa Herwald. So please keep an eye out for those episodes as they come out. Next slide, please. Another big thing that we're doing last year is we helped start the RFS Journal Club initiative, where every few months we try to have a session that presents an important topic related to IR. We were able to have sessions regarding treatment of abdominal aortic aneurysms and treatment of varicose veins, as well as fighting neointimal hyperplasia, which was a topic talking about drug-eluting stents and drug-eluting balloons and treatment of chronic lower extremity ischemic disease. This year, yesterday or 2 days ago, we actually had our journal club session on surviving sepsis, talking about the guidelines for management of early goal-directed therapy for sepsis. And then one of our goals this year is to also have a session on the ATTRACT trial. And our goal is to try to have all service lines contribute to this journal club initiative. So if you guys have any ideas on a topic, please email me and we'll get you scheduled. Yeah, and then these are basically some other topics, ideas that I had that we can discuss during our upcoming meeting. Next slide, please.
All right, thank you so much, Justin. A lot going on with communications, as always, and looking forward to a great year. If anyone has any questions for communications, you can reach them at SIR-RFS@gmail.com. Our next presentation will be International Outreach Committee, presented by Marco Ertreo.
Hello, hi everybody. My name is Marco Ertreo. I'm a PGY3 from Georgetown University Hospital. And I'm actually a foreign medical graduate myself, so I'm particularly close to the topics that I'm going to be talking about. Next slide, please. So our committee is pretty young. It's built around the goals that you see on this slide. And it's built around developing and building SIR and mostly RFS and international societies relationships and learning from each other. What we try to do is to expand the international and US opportunities, such as presence at society meetings and observerships for both US and international trainees. And by doing this, we also want to identify, divulge, and learn from the best practices and clinical practices, mostly, that international and US IR programs are using to engage with patients, but then also to educate and integrate medical students and junior residents early in their training. We want to expand opportunities for international trainees and SIR members, both at home and abroad. And ultimately, what we try to do is to assist the RFS with all projects that require collaboration with international societies, mainly by serving as a point of contact and by providing any available resources that we might have. Next slide, please. We are currently working on a few projects. As I said, the committee is pretty new, and we're developing our main project, which is actually the creation of an observership or exchange program between US and foreign trainees. We're currently working on a proposal pilot proposal between ETF, which would be the almost the RFS of SIR-RFS, the European IR Society, and RFS. So as of now, we're working with them. We would like to see this then, once we get blessing from SIR, to have this expand also with the Indian and the Asia Pacific societies. And we'll actually be talking about this in LA at SIR at the International Steering Committee meeting that's going to take place. Another project that we work on is doing a series of interviews with prominent foreign IR society trainees and young IR members, and then publishing the interview in the RFS newsletter. And we can learn a lot from just seeing how different countries and actually different continents train their own IR members, IR trainees. We'll also be working on a SIR-RFS 2018 delegation. We're building upon what what Alexandra Joe, last year's chair, did, and gave a very well-received presentation. And we were able actually to secure a longer spot this time, where we'll be talking of the current US IR training changes and the medical student outreach methods that we use to foster IR interest at an early stage. We also try to increase the RFS representation at foreign meetings. So as I was talking about SIR-RFS just now, the Indian IR Society meeting, where actually Rajat, my co-chair, is coming back from right now. I think he's on the plane. And also with the Asia Pacific meeting. And we do this basically in an effort to develop the inter-society relationships. And ultimately, something that I'm particularly also keen on is developing an online resource that foreign trainees and also medical students can access in an easy way when they're seeking information on how the US system works, or if they're seeking counsel on any sort of IR-related topic, and mentorship also on how to enter the US system, which is something that can be very complicated from abroad. Next slide, please. Current achievements that we have, you'll see the first interview with Luka Novosel. He's a Polish resident who's been exposed to different types of training, and mostly in Europe. And he'll be, his interview will be in the, should be in our next RFS newsletter. The SIR-RFS 2017 presentation was very well received, and it was mostly on, it was giving an overview of US IR training methods and ways to access the US system as a foreigner. And thanks to that, actually, they asked us to come back and expand on all of these topics. And we're starting to develop new relationships with different international societies. So as I was saying, Rajat is coming back from the Indian Society, SVIR, and actually Justin Guan is going to be going to APS CVIR, the Asia Pacific Society meeting, in the beginning of March, if I'm not mistaken. And he'll be touching base with the SIR delegation there, and hopefully making contact also with their sort of RFS component or trainee section. Next slide, please. Obviously, we have a lot of projects. One of our main goals is to have these projects taken into fruition, and I think we're on the right path for that. Obviously, other projects that we have, or hopes mainly, are is expanding the scholarship opportunities for international trainees that might be interested in attending SIR. A lot of this is pending or is based on any funding that we might be able to obtain, but we would like to host dinner gatherings and social events at SIR where we invite international attendees, both at a trainee and an attending level. And we would like to invite also international members to attend RFS events at SIR. And ultimately, what it comes down to is just trying to make contact, build relationships with foreign IR interested IR attendings, IR trainees, and just learn from one another to advance the clinical scope of IR. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Marco. International committee, even in its infancy, but has grown so much and accomplished a lot. So many thanks to the outgoing chairs and the incoming chairs for all of your efforts in this important area. Our next presentation will be recruitment, presented by Bodell.
Thanks, David. Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join the meeting tonight. My name is Brycen Bodell. I am the incoming RFS Recruitment Committee Chair. I'm a second-year radiology resident, PGY3, at the Medical College of Wisconsin in Milwaukee. I'll be taking over for Charles Hua, who has really done an exceptional job as chair of this committee in the past year. He's also been a tremendous help with a successful transition experience with the chairs. So thank you, Charles, for that. Next slide. So I'm not going to get into a whole lot of detail regarding membership numbers, but I think the take-home point to talk about here is that we've seen a good rate of increase over time in med student and resident numbers. One of the important factors in considering that as we enter the new era of IR is continually recruiting high caliber individuals who are really going to help drive this specialty forward into the future. I think that is one of the key elements that we'll be focusing on. And we're really on track to do that. Things are going to be going pretty well. Next slide, please. Let's first, real quick, just kind of touch on the membership level for trainees, just to kind of get to some of those details out of the way. So when joining SIR, a member is automatically considered a general member. This does not, however, signify involvement within the committees and service lines in the resident fellow section. It's simply a membership. A separate application from SIR, which I will discuss shortly, allows for this, and these applications are reviewed and accepted by the recruitment committee. This is on a rolling year-round basis. That gets RFS General Council membership. So you're actually able to be placed into one of the committees and into the service lines where you can continuously get involved from there. Additionally, there is a next level of membership, which is actually the RFS Governing Council. And that, as David described the structure of that earlier, this is going to be a situation where somebody has shown involvement over time with their sections, their councils, and or service lines. If an applicant finds that everything within the section resonates with them, she or he can apply for a position as a committee chair within the governing council. And this allows them to actually take a leadership role. And so it's a really exciting thing. I would highly encourage anyone who is interested in doing that to apply. Again, this is late summer, early fall that the governing council applications will happen. Next slide, please. Okay, so the application itself. So the link is through the RFS webpage. It's a pretty self-explanatory application. The application has got 3 questions pertaining to members' kind of perspective as to what's going on with IR, their role in IR, and some other details about them. There is an area for CV elements, research, awards, such and such, and of course, demographic information, what program the person is from, educational history, so on and so forth. Within the application is also an area where a member can, or a potential member can select essentially in a rank list fashion what committees they are interested in joining and what service lines they are interested in joining. The recruitment committee, we oversee this application and we review every single application that comes in. This is on a rolling basis. Qualified applicants essentially are assigned to these committees based on those preferences I described, as well as definitions within their application. What kind of committee does it seem that they're going to fit in based on their answers, and what the committee needs as well. So if there's an area where we really need some more people in a such and such committee, we might have more preference for that. Ultimately, though, people tend to be placed in committees more geared around what they have chosen in their rank list. The application is, the applicant is actually sent an acceptance email once assigned, and with that email are several resources for the committees that they have been assigned to, including the emails and contact information for the committee chairs, the service line chairs, and then an information packet that they can get familiarized with a little bit of the goings on within the section. At that point, Dr. Vatican Sherry typically calls each new member, he spends time highlighting the RFS initiatives, which I will also discuss again shortly, and then just gives them a general welcome to the section. And so that is a well-established pattern of how we do this now. We will continue to do it in that fashion for some time, I think. Next slide, please. So one of the big things going on with the recruitment committee right now is this class concept. This is a newer concept. This is something that was developed just last year. Charles has done a great job of initiating this, and so I'm going to carry that forward this year and help evolve that as we continue to develop it. The purpose of this concept, the class concept, is to promote accountability between members regarding their involvement with the committees and service lines. Then they essentially have the ability to talk about what's happening. So it's completely separate from the committees and the service lines. These classes meet quarterly where the members can actually discuss, this is what I've been doing in this committee, this is what I've been doing in that service line. And so everybody gets to be aware of what's going on around the section, and this is good. But perhaps one of the most important things with this is that through the class, we promote accountability toward the RFS initiatives on a local level. We also promote accountability toward keeping open communication with everyone, as well as involvement within the committees, making sure that people are staying on track and not essentially falling off the chopping block or ending up on the chopping block and just disappearing. This enables us to have a fellowship of sorts and with each other. And so that fosters a sense of closeness, I think, between the members. And so, again, this is a completely separate group that each member is placed in as they apply. The structure of it, as this slide points out, for every 10 to 15 consecutive new applicant that is accepted into RFS, that will make up a class. Once that class is filled, an invitation to an initial class meeting goes out. That initial class meeting comes equipped with a great reading packet that really highlights Charles' daughter's story. There are also some papers within the reading packet about successfully running your own practice in a clinical standpoint, talking about the importance of we as IRs to establish our clinical skill and not just be quote unquote catheter technicians. And so this is really starting to drive those points home early on. During that class meeting, we talk about those concepts further from the reading packets. Then we also discuss some of the structure of RFS. We introduce the initiatives, as were also described earlier, per year that Dr. Vatican-Cherry keeps us updated with. And through that, we also create leadership. So this is where somebody may not have a leadership position within a committee, but they do have that opportunity to start essentially in a kind of practice unofficial way and get their feet wet, get comfortable with leading in a group through web meetings and through some of the ways we do things with RFS. Next slide. With those RFS initiatives, again, these were described earlier, but I think this is something that's very important, and I think that re-highlighting this is something that we should do. So the overarching initiatives are always going to be on the medical student recruitment level and then resident training level. For the medical student level, this is where we're going to introduce the class concept to the RFS initiative. So within the class, keeping each other accountable for staying involved with your IRIGs at home, at your home institution, being a resource for medical students, being somebody that they can approach and essentially kind of taking on a leadership role where they can be exposed to IR. That's going to be a lot of the difference that's made in the future, is how we approach the way medical students see this. And it's our responsibility to deliver a clear picture to the med students what it really is. We certainly want a lot of med students to see interest in this, but we also don't want them to falsely believe it's something that it's not. Being transparent and essentially establishing good leadership roles where we are recruiting the best and brightest minds into this specialty is kind of the goal here. The other level, of course, is the resident training level. So within this class concept, we stay accountable with making sure that we're getting involved and or starting resident-run continuity clinics back at our local institution. most other specialty has these types of clinics, but that's not something that is seen in large variety yet in IR. So we encourage each other to get involved on that aspect. Also staying involved with training on levels that we may not get in our diagnostic portion of training, of the diagnostic radiology portion. Promoting clinical focuses. And the 3 ones we're focusing on this year, once again, stroke evaluation, DVT and venous therapies, and critical limb ischemia, staying alert to these things and understanding as we are not practicing them immediately will keep us fresh, and that's something that we are going to be promoting through that class experience. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, we are going to also promote leadership within the classes individually. So essentially, when we have that initial meeting, we will establish this. So there will be a general leader within that class. This is going to be somebody who kind of takes charge of broadly checking in on the progress of that each person in the class is doing with their projects, within their committees, within their service lines, and how involved they are with the RFS. We will also have somebody who will act as a recruitment leader. This is going to be somebody who just kind of keeps the tabs on everyone and is a point person regarding each member staying involved at their home institution with the IRIGs and with getting things like med student symposia going, and basically just kind of being an accountability leader. The training leader, very similar, except on the end of doing things like the resident run clinics, getting some of the clinical skills talked about and maintained, and kind of seeing and keeping tabs on what everybody's doing regarding that. Next slide, please. So within each class, that leadership is a way that somebody can essentially get familiarized more with what's going on throughout the section, but also get a little practice for their future career, especially if they do something like staying in an academic setting. So just to kind of recap on some of the goals for the recruitment committee this year, for the 2018-2019 calendar year, one of the main objectives really is to continue to further streamline the online RFS application, making it available and getting it out there so that people understand it exists. There are a lot of people who are very involved with IR and with SIR who may not also be aware of the RFS. So we're going to try to bridge that gap. We're going to really focus on that this year. Another is to focus on current membership through recruitment, as I described, and also retention through the active participation. Again, this is going to be the class concept that I discussed. We really want to also establish a strong presence at RFS this year, and then set it up for even better next year. The more people that we can get exposed, the greater of a pool we're going to have from that ability to recruit from a very highly qualified people who, like I said, are going to drive this into the future. Again, we're going to promote and amplify our interest groups nationally. And then what we really want to do as well, I apologize for the broken sentence, is really promote member involvement with IR, clinically related endeavors locally and through the class system. Additionally, we will also work very hard to successfully organize and direct the next governing council elections for 2019. Those are the big salient features of what we're doing now. Of course, I'm always happy to take questions and emails later down the road if you should have any. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bryce. Appreciate the great update from the recruitment side. We will now move on to our advocacy section, who will be giving an update. Our incoming chair is Huang, who unfortunately couldn't be with us tonight, but one of his lead members on advocacy, Hoffman, will be presenting this evening.
So good evening, everyone. Like you said, my name is Hoffman. I'm an R3 at Wake Forest, sitting in for John tonight. It's my pleasure to provide you all with a brief overview of the advocacy committee, what we've accomplished, and what our upcoming goals are going to be. As many of you are probably aware, the policy drives practice in our country, and decisions are made on Capitol Hill with input from various advisory and interest groups. The SIR Political Action Committee, SIR-PAC, represents our interest in Washington. Currently, we're supporting the HR 1167, Enhancing Opportunities for Medical Doctors Act of 2017, as well as the Senate bid for Dr. Steve Ferrara in Arizona. Next slide, please. As for the committee, we play a multifaceted role in helping SIR-RFS in our field through fundraising efforts, raising awareness, and engaging in direct interaction with lawmakers. SIR has one of the weakest political action committees in terms of funding among medical PACs, and we are dwarfed by urology, cardiology, vascular surgery, and our diagnostic colleagues with the ACR. However, the silver lining is that recent data shows that we're on our way to having the most successful fundraising cycle in SIR-RFS history, and that's in no small part due to the efforts of this committee. The Advocacy Committee directly generated almost $2,000 in donations with the phone-a-thon this past winter, and we've also garnered awareness through presentations at SIR 2017, multiple publications in IR Quarterly, and the donor survey distributed last year, the results of which will be presented as a poster at SIR 2018 this year in LA. Furthermore, our poster regarding the current plight of SIR-RFS received special recognition at ISET 2018 recently, just last week. You can contact John if you're interested in viewing the poster or any additional information. Many members of the committee were present for Hill Day 2017 at last year's annual meeting, and many members have been involved in the grassroots leadership program, where interested individuals are selected for a 3-day in-depth program with training and multiple Hill visits. Selection for this usually occurs in the spring, with the program occurring in May when Congress is in session. So be on the lookout for the call for applications for that. Next slide, please. So now that you've seen where we've been, here's where we're going to be going. We're looking for volunteers for the Grassroots Leadership Program for 2018. The application process will begin in the coming months, with the program scheduled for the second week of May. The purpose of this program is to introduce trainees to advocacy early on and expose you to the current state of affairs on the Hill with regard to knowledge and perception surrounding interventional radiology amongst policymakers. And the hope is that you take home the knowledge and skills to have a site visit with your local representative following the program. And so far, there have been 5 successful site visits conducted by members of our committee in the past years, which is great. Social media is where it is at these days, so nothing would spread the message faster than having a strong social media presence. Our members are expected to try to get their home institutions to follow us on Twitter, and the goal is to gain enough traction to where the members of SIR search us out to find more about how they can help. And finally, it's my pleasure to also announce that we'll be having our first fundraising competition through the RFS, with winners of the competition to be announced at the annual meeting, and details of that will follow. So in conclusion, you can contact John with any additional questions. He's got his email here, capital JUNJAING.HUANG.MD@gmail.com. Thank you, and we hope to see some of you at future committee meetings.
Thank you so much, Kane. I really appreciate the update. And we will be moving on to our IR Residency Training Committee, headed by David Duncan.
Thank you, David. I'm David Duncan. I'm a PGY3 R2 resident at University of California, San Diego. I can't begin without saying a few words about our former chair, Chris Molloy. He's done an amazing job leading this committee over the past year, and it's a very hard act to follow. Next slide, please. So what does the IR Residency Training Committee do? Well, the members have previously aimed to complete and publish integrated curriculum and provide educational resources for IR and DR residents who hope to become clinically oriented physicians. They've sought to identify and distribute up-to-date information regarding the IR residency, early specialization in IR, and independent IR training pathways, as well as identify and communicate best practices that IR programs are using to engage, educate, and integrate medical students early in their training. I found that Chris and the committee members have done a great job over the past year in accomplishing these goals, which I'll show a little bit later. Next slide, please. All those accomplishments leave the committee at a point where it should continue with the themes outlined already, but increase the focus on the unique goals of the IR Residency Committee, along with active collaboration with other committees. This year, we want to focus on what the structure of IR residency is, creating an inclusive IR residency, establishing a framework of knowledge and experience that should be gained while in an IR residency, and determining the role of adjunct tools in an IR residency, such as simulations. Next slide, please. Like I said, last year was a busy year for the IR Residency Committee, so I'll focus on several of the main accomplishments. Number one, a compendium of IR-related clinical rotation goals for IR trainees. It's a set of interactive online modules that cover basic IR procedures and concepts. It's geared toward rotating medical students or junior residents right before they start their IR rotation so that they can just crush it. Number two, survey regarding the intern year and IR-related rotations. We thought that there was a lack of a comprehensive list and review of various internships and how they prepare residents for DR IR residency. So we created an online questionnaire designed to review internship experiences and determine how those experiences prepared them for their DR IR residency. We asked PGY 2 through 6 to participate, and the questionnaires, they filled them out. So right now we're doing the analysis, and we have goals to publish or present the data at an upcoming conference. Next slide, please. Number 3, program director survey. We asked program directors to tell us how they are reaching out to medical students in order to recruit the best and the brightest to IR. What we tried to do is to provide a reasonable set of tools for program directors to inspire the next generation of interventional radiologists. Number 4, the IR residency block curriculum. This project is now published on the RFS website. The link is below. What we did is survey the program directors and department coordinators to find out the structure of each IR residency. It lists out how many IR rotations you can expect during each year of your training and available clinical electives at that institution. It's a great resource for medical students applying for IR residency, as it can map out what their expected clinical IR and electives may be. Next slide, please. So now we're on to our current projects. Pre-rotation interactive online modules. These are a set of interactive online modules that cover basic IR procedures and concepts geared toward medical students and junior residents. It's a little bit different than the compendium IR-related clinical rotations because these focus on individual procedures, what you need to know about them, indications, contraindications, things like that. Some of the topics that we've already created are listed here, such as TACE, PE, DVT. Next slide, please. We're currently working on an SIR-RFS joint project. It's a universal curriculum. The universal curriculum is a multi-committee collaboration with clinical education, communications, recruitment, and med student council that is aggregating resources from the SIR cloud, the RFS, and journals in order to build a platform that will give residents access to the same educational material no matter what program they attend. This is a big project that is part of the Executive Council's 5-year plan, and it will be receiving a lot of resources from the SIR in the coming years. So right now it's in kind of a limbo, but we'll find out more about the plan for the next couple of years at the upcoming SIR. We currently have about 400 lectures and webinars already acquired. Next slide, please. Resident clinics. So this project is still in its infancy, but the end goal is to create a roadmap for programs that want to establish a clinic in the future. We've started to develop projects to identify how programs with clinics run those clinics, what roadblocks they encountered when they tried to establish a clinic, and how those programs were solved. Those problems were solved by the programs. We wanted to determine the feasibility and try to get the RFS to live up to its goal of creating a clinically oriented IR residency. Next slide, please. For the sake of time, I'm not going to talk about these programs very much because they're still in the early stages, but we are trying to figure out exactly how the clinical rotations will be integrated into the IR residency. We're trying to delineate how many clinical rotations each IR residency should have and when those rotations should be, and provide goals for those rotations. Next slide, please. We want to increase diversity in the IR residency by reaching out to underrepresented minorities and finding mentors with the same background experience as those medical students interested in IR. We believe that diversity is a strength that provides many vantage points from which we can tackle problems in IR. Next slide, please. We have a lot more projects. We hope to have you on our committee. Thank you for our attention. Next slide, please.
Thank you so much, David. Clearly a lot of accomplishments and a lot on the plate for this year. So excited for all the accomplishments to come. Our next committee is Women in IR, which will be presented by Jill Zhang.
Great, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jill Zhang. I'm a R2 PGY3 from the Harlem Hospital Center, Columbia University. I'm the incoming chair of the Women in IR committee. I'll be taking over from Monica, who has done a fantastic job over the past year building our Women in IR committee. Next slide, please. So we are one of the young committees established in 2016, along with the SIR Women in IR attending section. We are part of the SIR Women in IR initiatives to promote and support women in IR and also to help them achieve their career goals. As we know, our current SIR president is woman, and our SIR president-elect is also a woman. So one of my goals this year is to encourage our women in IR members to take on leadership roles. Next slide, please. There has been continuous growth of our membership over the past year. Now we have 55 members, and 38 of our members have been actively involved with projects. Next slide, please. This pie chart shows that most of our members are radiology residents. Our new integrated IRDR residency will attract more applicants directly from medical school. So one of my goals this year is to collaborate with the Medical Student Council to increase medical student recruitment. Next slide, please. In 2017, our committee has published several articles online to address pregnancy for women in IR, radiation exposure, work-life balance, and patient care. We also held several webinars regarding treatment of breast tumors, business in medicine, and academic versus private practice career choice. In addition, we know female role models are important. Natasha has been our liaison to help improve mentorship with our Women in IR attending section. Next slide, please. In 2017, we had several successful collaborations with other RSF committees. We helped with the design and implement of the SIR Introduction to Research online program with the Clinical Education Committee. Shantanu has given a great overview of the project, and David is a fantastic leader on the project. Both Monica and I are very passionate about it, and our members, such as Jennifer, have done a great job with collaboration. We also opened our RFS Finance Business Education website in January this year with the help from our webmaster, Eric, the IR Residency Training Committee, and the Clinical Education Committee. In addition, we assisted our Women in IR attendees to build the Women in IR website. Finally, we created Women in IR radio with the SIR Communication Department to play at the SIR 2018 annual meeting. Next slide, please. This is a picture of our Women in IR gathering at RSNA 2017, and we were very excited to have the opportunity to chat with our female IR attendings, residents, and medical students at the event. Next slide, please. For 2018, we are in the process of implementing leadership webinar series to provide leadership knowledge and tools, and also to encourage our trainees to take on leadership positions. In addition, over the next few years, we want to gradually increase Women in IR presence at the Medical Student Symposium. Our goal are to increase the awareness and the knowledge for women to pursue a career in IR, and also to promote female trainees. Also, Natasha, Danya, and Monica have been working on our Women in IR workforce trainee survey. They just got a macro grant. They'll be working on presenting the result at SIR 2019. Next slide, please. Our committee had several goals for 2018. First, we have created a Women in IR communication manager position to collaborate with our RFS social media team. We want to increase our social media presence to inspire and attract more women into IR. We also want to design a social media platform for female patient education, such as women with peripheral arterial disease or fibroids. In addition, we have created a Women in IR education manager position to further develop our collaborations with the Clinical Education Committee and IR Residency Committee. We want to empower our members to take the lead in IR clinical training. And also, we want to make sure we are outstanding clinicians. As we discussed earlier, we definitely want to promote recruitment of medical students into Women in IR Committee in collaboration with Medical Student Council. Finally, we also want to encourage our male residents and medical students to join or help promote Women in IR. So our IR Residency Committee outgoing chair, Chris, have recently helped to recommend 3 female residents and medical students to our committee. We think mentorship from interventional radiologists who are men or women is essential to help encourage women trainees to choose IR career. So if anyone online right now wants to join our committee, please feel free to message me. Next slide, please. Last but not least, please join us at SIR 2018. We have several great sessions planned, such as Women in IR reception, and our first RFS Women in IR committee meeting will also be held on the 18th. We also have great panels and lectures scheduled. I look forward to seeing you all at SIR in March. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jill, for the great update and overview of the committee, and really looking forward to working with you this year towards advancing those important diversity initiatives. So lastly, but certainly not least, will be our annual meeting committee update, and Shantanu will take it away.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Shantanu.
Perfect. Next slide. Next slide, please. All right, guys. So on my end, it's a little bit slow, so I'll try to go through this. I hope you're seeing what I'm seeing. But the annual meeting essentially is the annual committee is essentially broken down into it's a 2-member team, me and Rajat, who is unable to make it today. Our goal is to organize a curriculum for the residents and essentially recruit the speakers that are going to be at the curriculum, all the different sessions, as well as kind of think ahead as to what you guys might want to see. So the big 3 things that we plan are the sessions, the dinners, and then a few of our own sort of personal flavors that we put on the curriculum that you'll see at LA this year. Next slide. So in terms of for this year, there are a couple new things that we're doing, which I'll touch on. But like I said, the focus is on you guys, the trainees. So we have an IR program directors panel, which will focus on making sure you guys know what they're looking for when you guys are applying, for those of you who are not applying this year. Also, we want to make sure that the current residents who are in the ESIR or will be applying for the independent IR pathways will be well acquainted with the system and know what they're kind of getting into and how to best position themselves for the upcoming match. And then finally, we want to make sure that you guys, the IR trainees, whether you're med students or residents, are well prepared for your rotations, both IR rotations as well as off-service rotations when you guys do them. And then you guys have most likely all heard of the different dinners that we do, the Synergy dinner as well as the scholarship winners dinners. Both of those are planned by the annual meeting committee as well. Next slide. So the couples, like what I was mentioning, was the nice thing about being part of the annual meeting committee is that you can kind of put your own personal spin on the committee. So Rajat's spin was innovation. He's all about sort of tech and tech advancement. So he wants to, his new session this year was the innovation session, where we want to make sure that people are thinking about, how to progress IR, how to take the tech that we have right now and push it forward and push the envelope. So that's his spin. My spin is, as I mentioned earlier, the emergencies in IR session. Next slide. This is a slide that I think it might be noteworthy to mention. It coincides with the IR residency, the inception of the IR residency. As you can see, the med student members from 2016 to 2017 skyrocketed. I mean, it's a pretty amazing jump, and it speaks to the rest of the committees doing a fantastic job in recruitment. But I think, you know, that for us in the annual meeting committee, that essentially means that we got to step up our game and make sure we do a good job in catering to a lot of these trainees and think like they think and figure out what they want to see and then provide that. Similarly, the resident membership, resident attendance has steadily climbed as well. I think which reflects the kind of the increasing national interest in IR. Next slide. So for those of you guys who have not applied for the in-service or the scholarship, for the travel scholarship, I would highly recommend you guys doing that. We have an awesome curriculum for you guys. For those of you who are already winners, congratulations, and looking forward to seeing you. With that, I think that concludes my session. Next slide.
Thank you very much, Shantanu. And that concludes our updates for our committee. I'd like to thank you all for joining us tonight and remind you that at the annual meeting, we'll be having an RFS General Assembly on Sunday, March 18th at 1 o'clock. This is a great opportunity to meet with us in an informal fashion and answer any of your questions in person that you may have, and we would love to meet with all of you to do that. So with that, we'll close for the evening. Please feel free to contact myself or the RFS communications team at the emails listed to the right there, and with any questions at all. And in summary, this is going to be a crucial year for IR and the RFS, and our goals are aligned with the SIR, and we will do what we can to further ahead those initiatives. So thank you all so much for being on this evening, and we hope to see you in LA in March. Have a great night.